up now. No way that we could slow down. Came a long way from.
Imagine JayZ losing a $5 billion dice roll in Times Square. The same crowd that once cheered Hove did that, now popping champagne as his deal gets torched. On one side, you got Broadway, with its union crews and neighborhood boards declaring not on our stages. On the other is Sean Carter, Rock Nation, and Caesars Entertainment, promising a casino that will uplift culture and bring jobs to Harlem, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. Same shit every corporation spew when they trying to pass some bullshit. Jobs and housing is gonna bring. One might assume after 14 months of lobbying, celebrity endorsements.
We want JayZ to get the casino. In Times Square. It's time that a brother of color, know what I'm saying? We've been gambling. If you go to any casino in America, it's nothing but black and Spanish people in there gambling every day. Finally, we got an opportunity to make the fly, because he told me, yo, we gonna kill Dubai. Like, this casino's gonna be so fly.
And a last-minute promise to fund the Civil Rights Museum would be sufficient. But it wasn't. A decisive 4-2 committee vote effectively told Jay, keep your dice, we keep in our theaters. Today we're gonna examine how one of hip-hop's biggest names keep getting caught in capitalist bullshit, but keeps trying to play it off like he's doing it for the culture. Let's dive into this. In October 2022, as Times Square was still recovering from the pandemic, Caesar placed a $5.4 billion proposal before Kathy Hochul.
My play, though, is Caesars Entertainment. Shares up today, marginally about 0.5%, but that's as the casino giant launches a new partnership with SL Green Realty Corp to redevelop 1515 Broadway. That's a portion of Times Square here in New York City. And Caesars is the latest casino brand to pursue one of New York's 3 remaining casino licenses. Now, it would come with a big cost, Dave, an expected $500 million in licensing fees.
Yeah, and just from a real estate perspective, how I look at things, you're looking at a vacancy rate near 16% in Times Square, which is massive. And that, of course, is because of the pandemic. People have just not gone back. So there's a lot of fear from the traffic standpoint.
A proposal of this magnitude requires a charismatic face. And no one sells a dream quite like the man who turned
I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Help me handle my business, damn.
into a global mantra. That shit had every 2-bit hustler from t-shirt seller to local weed man screaming that quote. Mad annoying. JayZ was not a silent investor. He became the front man for the entire operation. He confidently declared that a casino wouldn't compete with Broadway, but would complement it. He promised no internal retail shops, assuring that the tourists still would patronize local business and keep the economy humming. The narrative he was spewing was straightforward: jobs, tax revenue, and a portion of the profits for minority-owned subcontractors. The press release even used the phrase culturally sensitive gaming, whatever the fuck that means. When the hometown hero with a $1 billion smile makes a pitch, people tend to listen. Community boards in Queens and the Bronx received private Zoom calls with him, hearing the same line he used in his Marcy Project days: we can own this instead of watching from the outside. It sounds like empowerment, until one remembers that in this game, the house always retains the largest share. Let's discuss the numbers. The part of the plan they hope will be overlooked, the widely publicized job numbers, thousands of construction and permanent positions, came from an impact study paid for by Caesar themselves. That's like me telling you why you should watch my videos with data my best friend came up with. Doesn't sound very reliable, does it? When independent economists at Hunter College analyzed the same data, they came up with a significantly smaller number of permanent jobs, with 2/3 expected to be part-time and without any benefits. That's not exactly the economic engine they was advertising. And when them very same workers end up on public assistance, better believe people gonna shame them and tell them they ain't working hard enough. The promised tax revenue was also contingent on New York outperforming Vegas's tourism numbers by a crazy margin, a surge that not even Vegas has seen in a decade. Also, the Port Authority projected massive increase in daily traffic, which would be a logistical nightmare.
The casino proposal that they have not only includes a casino, but it also includes affordable housing, it includes a museum, and they have also other provisions, including open space.
JayZ's team pledged a significant transit fund to mitigate this, but when pressed for a timeline, the answer became a vague, we'll work with the city. In other words, a maybe, probably not gonna happen. Still, the plan advanced to the advisory committee, a group whose votes send a clear signal to Albany which way the wind is blowing. When Charlotte St. Martin, the president of the Broadway League, called an impromptu press conference, you know all the networks arrived. In front of the Lissicum Theater, she delivered a stern message. This was not simply a protest. It was a culture battle for economic survival. So we had union stagehands, actors, ushers, all form a united front. And don't get it twisted. Their opposition wasn't a moral crusade. It was purely financial. But casinos are designed as a self-contained environment. They're going to take the tourists, spending with free drinks, loyalty programs, all of that.
But the key here is going to be the integration of Caesars Entertainment's rewards program, because what you can do with those rewards, what they want to do with this, if they get the approval, you can go to Caesars, bet, win some money on the rewards, go to Broadway and spend it there. You can go somewhere else in Times Square and spend it at a restaurant, spend it at a bar. Now you're talking about a holistic experience in Times Square, one of the top tourist locations, obviously, in the country, in the world. I think it could be a really big play for Caesars.
Broadway, in contrast, thrives on organic foot traffic from the district itself. So its leaders understood that a casino would siphon all of the lifeblood from their ecosystem, jeopardizing thousands of jobs and the cultural fabric of Times Square, whether or not you agree that's what it should be. They did recognize that the unique character of the theater district was too valuable for them to enterprise it on a gamble. In April, the narrative shifted. Reverend Al Sharpton, another sellout, held a press conference at Harlem's National Action Network headquarters, flanked by Caesar executives. The optics framing the casino's rejection as a preservation of white Broadway control, which does have some truth to it. Their strategy appeared to be working until the committee released the environmental slide deck. Darn those pesky committee members. It turned out the diesel generators required for a 24-hour casino would push particle counts past EPA limits in a neighborhood where childhood asthma rates already double the national average. And you already know in any poor, lower income neighborhood, usually is be damned about the environmental hazards. The stark reality of public health concerns undercut the racial justice argument. The facade of repertory economics crumbled under the weight of the actual health statistics, and the uncomfortable truth got exposed. A project framed as empowering black community would disproportionately harm their health. In June, the fate of the Times Square casino was decided in a conference room at the Jacob Javits Center. After 40 minutes of public comments, the roll call began. The result, a decisive 4-2 against the proposal. Gabbled down, it was over.
Times Square, where the bright lights of Broadway will not include a casino marquee. JayZ's ambitious Times Square casino planned and another on the west side rejected today.
Community advisory committees are reviewing each proposal. The process is required by the law that authorized up to 3 downstate casinos. The board has 6 members in the city. The appointees from the mayor and the governor voted yes on the Times Square and west side casinos. The 4 reps from local elected officials voted no.
We want to make sure the middle class stays in New York City, and we want union labor. We want the hotels. This just wasn't the right place for these casinos.
It was a clear victory for Broadway and a very public, expensive defeat for JayZ and his partners. Real quick, hit that like button if you think betting against Broadway was just plain stupid. And hit the subscribe button, because next week I'm going to get into why every rapper seems like they're doing a podcast now. Alright. So this is where the narrative shifts from a zoning loss to a branded crisis. JayZ persona rests on the idea that somehow he mastered the system. From his quotes and all his music and what he says live on TV to his embarrassing comments on capitalism.
Still growing, and we're not falling for that technology, whatever, this public puts out there now that, before was the American dream. Pull yourself out of bootstraps and you can make it in America. All these lies that America told us our whole life. And then when we start getting it, they try to lock us out of it. They start inventing words like, capitalists and, things like that. I mean, we've been called nigger and monkeys and shit. I don't care. Those words y'all come up with, y'all got to come up with stronger words. When I say y'all, I'm not talking about you. The words they come up with, they got to come up with stronger words. We're not going to stop. We're not going to be tricked out of our position. Y'all locked us out. Y'all created a system that, doesn't include us. We said, fine. We went our alternate route. We created this music. We did our thing. We hustled. We fucking killed ourselves to get to this space. And, now it's like, eat the rich. And, man, we're not stopping. So
the casino was meant to be the final move to solidify his transition from entertainer to legacy builder. Instead, this rejection exposed serious cracks in that narrative. First, his leverage was not as significant as it was being advertised. Empire State Development released lobbying records revealing that Caesar spent a staggering $12 million on consultants, while Roc Nation spent a comparative paltry $1.4 million. And side note, ain't that shit so nasty that that's how everything gets done? Lobbying, spending money. But it became clear that JayZ was just a recognizable face, not the engine that was driving the machine. Then, there was the much-touted $15 million pledge to a civil rights museum. This was entirely contingent on the casino reaching an annual revenue of $2 billion by year 5, a benchmark no Times Square casino was ever going to reach. The check was never going to clear. That minority ownership stake that he was celebrating as community empowerment, that common equity was just a golden ticket designed to dissolve. He would have cashed out and bounced quietly, however many $1 million richer. Following the victory, the coalition that defeated the project, a powerful mix of Broadway theater owners, industry union, and local residents, weaponized the city's complex casino approval process. Now, every proposal needs to be approved by a local community advisory committee with a 2/3 supermajority vote. The Times Square coalition won that fight, ultimately rejecting the proposal and ending the bid and making sure that this type of shit can't happen again. The casino's bid failure marked a real-life shift in the cultural landscape. The narrative of JayZ as an unstoppable urban visionary, deeply connected to New York, was starting to get called into question. Meanwhile, I've been questioning it. His attempts to redevelop Times Square for a Caesars casino was seen by some as a disconnect from his community, prioritizing profit over public good. Again, something I've been saying about JayZ. Online, the discussion around JayZ's cultural capital exploded. The failed bid reignited older criticisms, including resurfaced clips of Dame Dash and his past warnings about JayZ's true motivation.
How is he messing up your money?
You know, like if I'm trying to sell something, him and his lawyers, Alex Shapiro, putting a false lawsuit on me, like, like that, devaluing anything that I have or trying to sell. But, or even down to like, we were selling Rockware, right, for like $400 million or whatever. I was gonna make $40 million. And right before Tommy Hilfiger signs the papers, he makes an announcement saying that he's not fucking with Rockware, that he's only fucking with S. Carter. The whole shit up. And I just feel like he did that only because I was going to make $40 million. Like, he just couldn't see, like, they get so mad if I'm going to make money off them.
The defeat of the Times Square casino bid, led by SL Green and Roc Nation, resulted in significant financial and reputational consequences. For SL Green, the primary developer, the vote meant millions lost in investments, a blow that prompted the CEO, Mark Holliday, to publicly criticize the advisory committee.
You know it. We met the standard and then some, and the only one with courage to stand up is the governor and the mayor appointees, and everybody else runs and hides. Go run and hide. Because what you did, the benefits you denied this community and this city and state, you have to live with that history forever.
However, the worst fallout was reputational, particularly for JayZ. The failed bid got widely perceived as a miscalculation and a betrayal of his New York roots. Not the first time he'd been on some bullshit. This sentiment was amplified by a stinging public relations defeat rivaled by rapper Nas, again beating JayZ. Just days after the Times Square rejection, a separate casino bid proposal featuring Nas was approved in Queens. While celebrating the victory, Queensborough President Donovan Richards publicly taunted JayZ by quoting a Nas lyric.
It couldn't have been done without everybody here. With that being said, I'm getting ready to vote, and there's a theme in Queens, and I know Nas is a part of this. Queens get the money. Sorry, JayZ, we win again. I just had to rub that in. You can let the Brooklyn Borough President know that I send my regards to him. With that being said, I vote aye.
A move that went viral and encapsulated the shift in narrative. Ultimately, while Roc Nation CEO Snitchy McSnitch Desi Perez offered a formal statement criticizing politicians involved in the rejection, the narrative had already shifted. Nas's public triumph overshadowed Roc Nation's attempt to manage the fallout, making a rare and widely documented public misstep for JayZ. In the grand scheme of things, this is about more than a single failed deal. It concerns the inherent limits of celebrity activism when it's entangled with venture capital ambition. JayZ weaponized black aspiration, not for the first time, telling us we could own the block instead of renting. Then he attempted to sell a game that would primarily benefit Caesar shareholders. And breaking news, they don't look like me. When the community said no, his team pivoted to respect the process, which is often code just for planning the next move. This public rejection is significant. It signals that voters draw firm lines around cultural spaces they refuse to monetize. It proves the old adage, you can't hustle people who read the fine print. Broadway's victory serves as a template for other neighborhoods, pitched a glittering quick fix that smells of nicotine and broken promises. So, I got a hypocrisy playlist. Let's review the pattern. In 2003, Jay became a minority co-owner of the Brooklyn Nets, initially leveraging his cultural influence to market the team's move to Brooklyn. In 2013, citing a conflict of interest with his newly formed Roc Nation sports agency, he sold his small stake as the team value ascended, drawing questions about his commitment to the franchise. In 2015, his streaming service Tidal vowed to pay artists fairer royalties. Yet years later, the broader struggle for artists to earn sustainable incomes from streaming still persists. And you can't put that all on JayZ. The streaming industry is tricky. But who do you think is one of the few people who made any money from that deal? You guessed it, JayZ. And his biggest F-up to me was in 2019. After publicly supporting kneeling protests against racial injustice, JayZ's Roc Nation formed a major partnership with the NFL. At the press conference announcing the deal, he stated, I think we moved past kneeling, and I think it's time to go into actionable items.
I think we passed kneeling. I think everyone knows what the issue is. And we're done with that. You know why we were kneeling? Okay, do you know the issue? Yeah, do you know the issue? Yes? We all know the issue now. Where are we moving on next? And I'm not, again, so to be clear for the room, I'm not minimizing that part of it because that has to happen. That's a necessary part of the process because the kneeling was not about a job. It was about injustice. Let me bring attention to injustice. Everyone's saying, how are you going forward and Cap doesn't have a job? This wasn't about him having a job. You know what it is. Now, how do we address that injustice?
And to go to Jay's point, we listened to our players. We understood what our players were saying, and we created a platform of which to help drive change in communities that Colin has raised, and that this partnership is going to help us make even greater change.
I said no to the Super Bowl. Don't need.
That actionable item was money in his pockets. The deal drew criticism, notably from Eric Reed, a close ally of Colin Kaepernick, who called the partnership a money move. He was smart. Even Kaepernick himself subtly criticizes JayZ's move past kneeling comment. The incident fueled accusations that JayZ had prioritized personal enrichment over the principles he once championed. The casino bid fits right into this pattern. Identify a cultural or geographic opportunity, inject a personal brand, extract maximum value, and attempt a graceful exit if complications come up. The difference is that this time, the exit was blocked by a united front of community leaders, theater owners, and labor unions who wasn't having it. Alright, last time I'm gonna bother y'all. But if this story made you rethink the line between celebrity influence and corporate interest, drop a comment with another example you've seen. Like, share, subscribe for more deep dives into the business behind the brand. JayZ taught the world a chant.
I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Let me handle my business, damn.
The defeat of the Times Square Casino project flips that lyric into a warning. When the business no longer serves the community that built the brand, that community retains the power to pull the plug. Times Square kept its neon lights, Broadway kept its stages, and JayZ kept his billions, minus a significant amount of cultural capital that no jackpot can replace. The house didn't win this time because the hustler forgot the cardinal rule. You can't game an audience that refuses to buy the fantasy. The next time a celebrity promises salvation wrapped in slot machines or crypto tokens, remember that decisive fortitude vote. It's a powerful reminder that community checks trump celebrity clout every time the cards are shown. And that is how capitalist Hove's billion-dollar Grift imploded. Live and in plain view of every New Yorker who believes the greatest show on earth isn't gambling, it's the truth.